Welcome to episode 2 of Coast to Coast Sports. I am your host, Matty Ice, and that gentleman over there with the very, very manly beard is David Street. And well, we've got quite the show for you. And if you didn't know, this last weekend we had some exciting games, but there was one game in particular that I know was on our minds. And with that being said, I'm going to let the man himself take it. David, go ahead, talk about your game this weekend.
Yeah, big game. And biggest thing that jumps out to me is Billy Napier finally gets his first signature win of his Florida career. I know some might argue that Utah was a signature win, but Utah's not a rival. Everybody and their mothers know that games with Tennessee matter a lot more. They just do. They just matter a lot more. And honestly, that was pretty much the best game that Billy Napier has called, like by far, during his tenure at Florida. I mean, look at what we saw right from the get go. He gets Trey Wilson involved, which I love. Now it's unfortunate that Trey Wilson got hurt. What is fortunate though is that he should be fine. He was just bruised up, but he should be fine. Going forward. And the run game. And one thing that I was going to mention in my YouTube short about what Florida needed to do to beat Tennessee, but I didn't mention it just because I thought the other factors were a little more important. But I was going to mention how we need to establish the run game because we are a run first team, and that's just something that we need to embrace. And I love how we were pounding the ground with Trevor Etienne. And let me talk about Trevor Etienne for a minute here. I love Montreal Johnson, but Montreal Johnson is quite clearly our second best back, as evidenced by the fact that Montreal Johnson had 12 carries and Etienne had 23 carries. And he used those carries to go off for, I think it was 172 yards and 3 touchdowns, if I remember correctly. And that was just something, and I don't want to talk about him too much. I won't mention his name, but that was something that our previous head coach just he did not play our best players. Like I'm sure we all remember Damian Pierce. Everybody could see that Damian Pierce was clearly the best running back on our team, but he didn't get it was crazy. So it's so nice and refreshing to actually have a head coach who is actually paying playing his best players. And I mentioned this on my Twitter account, but Billy went from going aggressive to conservative in the second half, which would normally infuriate me. But given that Graham Mertz clearly looked banged up, it seemed to me that Billy Napier went conservative to protect his quarterback and also trusting his defense because we were in complete control of the game. Now, apparently, in a press conference, Billy Napier said, "Yeah, I probably went a little too conservative." So the implications seem to be that he made a mistake, which I don't know why he would think that. I wish he would have owned what he did. Like, yeah, my starting quarterback was hurt, and I didn't want to risk further injury in a game that we were in complete control of. But all in all, man, great victory for Billy Napier and the Gators. He needed this one badly, and on top of that, we get a recruit too. Waltez Clark, 2025 recruit, our very first 2025 recruit, by the way, running back out of Tampa, Florida, 6'1", 200 pounds, just a complete monster of a player.
Yeah, there is nothing like that rivalry atmosphere in college sports, especially college football. And that's exactly what it felt like, at least to me on Saturday. And I think it's safe to say that over the past couple years, or I'll even just say maybe last year going into this year, it had seemed as Florida is on the decline. I know several people that chose them to be last in the SEC, at least being there close to Vandy. And that's not like the Florida Gators. And what was nice is that you could tell that they are continuing to move their way up, not only just with that victory, but I'll use an example. On Sunday, my brother called me and he said, "Do you know that Travis Etienne's brother is on Florida?" I said, "Of course I did. How did you not?" He was like, "He's fun to watch." I'm like, "Yeah, you've been missing it." They have an outstanding running game that just doesn't get talked about because Florida's been on the decline. So being able to see Etienne back there do his thing was phenomenal. But what stood out to me was also seeing Graham Mertz. He has been getting a lot of uh, negative comments, just because, especially how the Utah game went and being in the transfer portal. There just hasn't been a whole lot of positive associated with Florida. But Graham Mertz, he looked calm, cool, and collected back there. And yes, he did end up dealing with an injury with both of his hands or wrist, but he looked good to me. And it was nice seeing that Florida needed this victory. Billy Napier needed this victory. And overall, I think it was a great performance on Florida's part.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned Graham Mertz because with one thing I remember after the Utah game, when everybody was ready to burn Billy Napier, I tweeted something in defense of him, and I got a little bit of pushback. But I said something along the lines of, "Say whatever you want about Billy Napier, but I think one thing you have to give him credit for is how Graham Mertz looked." Now, before I mentioned that Graham Mertz's stats, his passing yards and his completion percentage were a little misleading because he was throwing dinks and dunks in the game. But I also said that he was not the reason why we lost the game. That Graham Mertz gave us a good chance to win the game, and I thought right away that was something that you had to give Billy credit for because remember, Billy was the one who evaluated all these quarterbacks in the transfer portal, and he determined that Graham Mertz is the guy. And everybody ripped on him for it, saying it was trash, that it was terrible. What were you thinking, Billy? What on earth were you thinking? Well, now through 3 games, look at Mertz's numbers. Yeah, he's not a gunslinger, but we never asked that of him. He's managing the game well, and that is what we've asked of him. And granted, the season's not over yet, but through 3 games so far, Billy is looking like a genius, and he is shutting up a lot of people's mouths.
Yeah, I agree. That question that you had just asked, what on earth were you thinking, was the same question I had, but not towards Billy Napier. It was towards Coach Josh Heupel. What on earth were you thinking, taking that timeout with just a couple seconds left, under 10 seconds, that then ended up essentially starting that fight? If you let the game run out, there's no fight. Uh, there was a press conference afterwards where they had asked him that question. Can you kind of break that down on his response, and do you agree with that?
Dude, it was total bush league. And get this. So I don't know if you saw, but after the game, when he went up to Billy Napier for the handshake, and he apologizes for the timeout. I'm assuming that he apologized. Yeah, like I said, for the timeout. But then he turns around in the press conference and justifies what he did. I think he said something. He said, we're trying to get on. We're trying to get an onside kick, and we're trying to score. And with Graham Mertz getting taken down, he says their guys were dancing around, so you got to make a tackle. Like, you buffoon! Do you not see that Mertz was clearly trying to take a knee there? Like, what on earth is wrong with you? And look, I think Josh Heupel is a great coach, man. You don't go. I think he's gone. I think his first couple of years he went 18-8, 7-6, 11-2. Yeah, eight. Okay, you don't go 18-8 your first couple of years. Especially the dumpster fire that he took over. You don't have that kind of record your first 2 years by accident. So clearly the guy can coach, but that was just a horrible coaching performance from him, and just came across as a total sore loser.
Yeah, I agree. Josh Heupel is a great coach, and I do think Tennessee still has a lot more to offer. They are by no means done. They are still 2-1 on the season, and it's still an early season. And the way that things are looking with Alabama, you never know what's going to happen in the SEC, especially Georgia. Georgia looked beatable the first half this last weekend. So against South Carolina, but then again they were facing the magician. Now you see me, now you don't, Spencer Rattler. So it depends on which one's going to show up that day. But uh, Tennessee is not done. But there was one surprising stat that I heard towards the end of the game, and that was Joe Milton in college has yet to throw a single touchdown pass while on the run. And that's shocking to me. But at the
Like,
same time,
weren't we sold on that all off season?
exactly. His accuracy is always going to be his kryptonite, and we saw that on display a lot. I mean, he threw the deep ball first drive of the game for Tennessee, and it was one of those that, like, wow, okay, well, that seemed pretty accurate. But then again, he was in the pocket and it was a deep throw. But one thing that I wanted to get your response on, because I know you had been pulling your beard hairs out, was the first play of the game for Florida penalty. Come on.
Oh, dude, I tweeted about that right away. I said, really, offensive line? Because with all the penalties that we committed against Utah, the other good team, only other good team we played, here we go again. And then of course we give up that touchdown, and it's like, okay, great. Here we go again. But hey, you know what? That didn't phase us, and I thought that was a sign of good coaching. The fact that Billy was able to keep his players calm and composed. And what really stood out to me, especially, was I don't know if you saw. I didn't see this right away. I must have been writing down my game notes as this happened, but after he gave up that touchdown, I believe it was I believe it was Cam Jackson who gave it up. If I remember correctly, if I'm wrong, I'll retract my statement. But I believe that was Cam Jackson, and Jordan Castell, mind you, a freshman, comes over and lifts his head up. That's leadership from a freshman. That's huge. That is just huge, man.
Yeah, and it wasn't just great coaching. I think it showed the growth within the team, because that's almost a carbon copy of exactly what happened against Utah. Penalty, and then you gave up a huge touchdown. But it showed who they are, because they didn't let the same result happen like the Utah game. They decided to, get their ish together, and they played a great football game from that point on. Granted, the second half, yes, it was a little bit more conservative, and Tennessee did have more yards, but I think that it showed the growth. And as you said, the leadership. I mean, you had a leadership from a freshman there, and I'm sure there was a lot more leadership on that sideline, even on the offensive side. So I think it was great to see that. And lastly, before I get over to my game, I had the pleasure of listening to a phone call this morning on a incredible sports show called Crane and Company. If you do not follow them, please follow them on Twitter at Crane and Company. Watch their videos on YouTube, live shows Monday through Friday. It starts at 7:30 Eastern time in the morning, so give them a look. But I had the pleasure to listen to this phone call by Smoking Gator, who is yourself, talking about this game. Can you give us a brief kind of just reaction of that phone call, and also the phone call that rebutted from a gentleman named Voltar?
Well, give props to Valtar. He ate crow, and I would have done the exact same thing, excuse me, if we had lost. But ever since we beat those frauds Saturday night, I had been anticipating that phone call all week, and I had a lot to get off my chest. It was great to get everything out, man. And by the way, do you mind if I say something about Tennessee, Josh Heupel, just real quick?
By all means.
Thanks. I just wanted to get off my chest. Tennessee fans are not going to like what I'm about to say, but and this might sound crazy, but I don't think that Tennessee is going to win championships under Heupel. Like, they might f around one year and win one championship under him. I could definitely see that happening, but I don't think that they're going to be consistently in the title hunt like Alabama under Nick Saban or Georgia under Kirby Smart. You know why? Because generally speaking, fast teams, I'm sorry, they don't win championships. Am I saying that a fast team has never won a championship or that can never happen? No, but I'm saying generally speaking, what is the formula for winning a championship? Great defense, controlling the clock, and being run dominant. And just last year, Tennessee lit the world on fire, but their defense was terrible. And like I said, fast teams do not win championships. In fact, if you just go back the past few years, one thing that you'll notice from the teams that have won championships, they've all controlled the clock for at least 30 minutes or above. And Tennessee last year was either at the bottom or they were right near the bottom, and it's easy to see why, because they score in very few possessions, and that's definitely fun football. But it's not going to win you a championship. Like, I'm sorry, that's just the way that it is.
Yeah, well, I'll do my best not to take it personal with Oregon being fast, but
I
maybe you're
know,
onto
like
something on why we haven't won
you guys
one.
were a fast team, and I was going to mention that, like, you guys were a fast team in 2014, and then you got slaughtered. But it does seem that under Dan Lanning, you guys are shifting identities, which is I think is great because it seems that your head coach actually knows what it takes to win a championship.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's a great shifting point. We're going to go ahead and start talking about Oregon's game against Hawaii. But first, those of you who are watching or listening, if you have not hit that like and subscribe button, please do so. We are a small show, but we are looking to continue to blow up bigger and bigger, and that is not possible without your guys' help. And also during this time is when we would normally talk about the people who have sponsored us. We do not have any sponsors at the moment. So investors, possibly you. If you get that reference, you're an OG. But let's go ahead and talk about Oregon's game against Hawaii, where we won 55-10. Before the game, I talked about my three keys to victory, and that was to establish the run game. That's exactly what Oregon did. 227 rushing yards, which is great. We were able to include everyone in that rushing game, which was important to me. Lately, it seemed like we only saw Bucky Irving, who is phenomenal, but we've got more people there, and we were able to see that. Jordan James was able to bring in two touchdowns rushing, and Noah Whittington as well. And that's important to us. That's who we can be to establish our identity is we can run it down your throat or we could throw it. So being able to have both the passing and rushing game to me is important. And secondly, on my three keys to victory was also you're going to see Braden Shager make mistakes. Going into the game, he had a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is not good. So he was going to make that mistake, and exactly what he did. Although it was only one interception, he did still throw one, which was early in the game. So that was another thing that we needed to do is let him make the mistake. It's going to happen. So we were able to do that, and he was averaging going into the game 324 passing yards, and we held him to 131 yards. So I think that shows the direction our defense is heading, which is phenomenal, is not giving up those big plays, containing the quarterback, not throwing far. But I think that was really important for us. I needed to see that because we are going to be playing this next week Shakur Sanders, who is one of the top passers right now in the country. We're going to face a Michael Penix Jr., who is, I think, the number one passer in the country. So being able to see our secondary defensive backs uh, contain the receivers as well as the quarterback, to me, is very important. And with having Dan Lanning there, a defensive minded coach, that's what's going to help us. And my third key to victory was a clean game by the offense. Once again, no turnovers on the offense. Bo Nix, although nothing flashy, still threw 21 for 27 for 247 yards. Like I said, nothing flashy, but it doesn't need to be. And that's one point that I want to bring up. I don't think we need to have a Michael Penix Jr. on our team. Yes, we may need to on a shootout game against like a Washington, but we aren't striving to have our quarterback win the Heisman. We're striving to have our team to win a championship. And to have that, you need to have a well balanced team, just as I said, establish the run game, establish the passing game. It will come thereafter. So I think by having such a balanced team, that's going to then give us the edge later on. Whereas we're not relying on stuffing the quarterback's stats so he could win the Heisman. I'm not saying that's what teams like Washington or Colorado is doing, but that's their identity is their passing game. Whereas us, I would rather have a more balanced attack. And with that victory over Hawaii, the Ducks have now won 32 straight non-conference home games. playing at Autzen Stadium is very tough, and we had quite the streak going into it last year where we did end up losing it, I believe, on our loss to Washington. But 32 straight non-conference home wins is great, and it's actually leads the nation in that time, and it stretches all the way out to 2008. So I like the direction Oregon is heading. I think we could only continue to get better each week. It's establishing once again that run game, creating that identity where is keep the secondary guessing. Are they going to be running it? Are they going to be throwing it? Well, who knows? Well, we do because that's what we want is we want to be able to fool the defense on any given day, any given play. So I expect us to continue to do that and hopefully not uh, step outside of the path that we're already on because I think that we are headed in the right direction. So if we could continue to do that, I think we're going to see a lot more success. So I was really pleased, and I know once again it's just a Hawaii team, but I take every game serious. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, we've seen Appalachian State have quite the upsets, so I know an individual who knows that a little too well. He played for the Michigan Wolverines. We won't say any names, but uh, I don't take any game lightly, just as I hope they don't. And they're really professional there, so I don't believe they do. So we have another tough game ahead of us this next week on a Colorado team that sounds like the whole nation wants to lose now. So I hope that we have the honors to do so.
Yeah, dude, I'm looking forward to that game between Oregon and Washington. College football is so much better when both of those schools are among the elites.
I agree. I mean, I like to see everyone do well. I mean, I have respect for the game. Whether it's the small schools or the big schools, and it's nice seeing the entire Pac-12 right now doing pretty darn well, especially since most of them are leaving after this year. So it's kind of a nice send off. And there's a lot of uncertainty right now just within college football. Like I said before, a Georgia team who looked beatable, Alabama, who doesn't look like the Alabama we know.
Terrible against USF. In fact, I don't think either of the quarterbacks they played, I don't think either of them got to 100 yards. And Saban quickly went back to Jalen Milroe as a starting quarterback. And I picked Alabama to win the championship. And now I'm starting to regret that.
Well, I don't blame you though for choosing them. Nick Saban has proven time and time again that even when he transitions from a legendary quarterback to a new one, it tends to always pay off. But maybe there was a reason why it took so long for him to announce that starter going into the season because shoot, he didn't know who was going to be the best. And that wasn't that there was such a great elite competition. It was the fact of the matter of I don't know who's going to be the best for us. And we're seeing that as fans now. So I'm definitely a little worried for that Alabama team. Do I love to see that they're not doing the best? A little bit. I mean, it's nice to see for once, but uh, they're still trying to find their DNA a little bit. Ohio State, uh, they've looked a little bit better since the first week, but they're going into a matchup against a Notre Dame team who's been looking really good as well. So I'm interested for that matchup.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And honestly, like at this point, the only playoff picks that I feel confident in that I made are Michigan and Washington, which I think you could argue that Washington might be the best team in the country. As crazy as that may sound, their quarterback Michael Penix has been on absolute fire. That dude has been putting up Burrow like numbers. It's incredible the kind of season that he's been able to put together. So yeah, those are the only teams that I feel confident in right now making the playoffs are Michigan and Washington. And of course, I could totally see Bama just remembering, oh wait, we're Bama, and then just winning the rest of their schedule with ease, and then sneaking their way into the national title game.
I it would not blindside me if that happened because I always have those expectations for an Alabama team led by Nick Saban. So uh as of now, and it sounds like you've kind of already answered it, as of now, who would be your Heisman pick?
My Heisman pick right now, dude. I got to go with Michael Penix. I know that I know that Shador Sanders is the talk of the town, and then obviously you have Caleb Williams, the reigning the defending champ. But how can you look at Michael Penix and the numbers that he's put up? I mean, sure, maybe he hasn't played the best competition, but numbers don't lie. That dude is going up. Like I said, he's putting up Burrow like numbers, and he is far and away the reason why Washington is a top 10, arguably a top 5 team right now. And I firmly believe that if Michael Penix stays healthy throughout the entire season, I believe that Washington will cruise their way into the playoffs. Now, before the season started, I had Washington going 11-1. That one loss, as you can probably guess, is USC, and I believe they're playing at USC, so the Coliseum is going to be a tough environment for the Huskies. But other than that, I think Washington will cruise their way into the playoffs. I really like their game.
Yeah, going into the year, I always choose two different Heisman type of picks. I choose who I think is going to win the Heisman and then a possible dark horse. And Michael Penix was my for sure Heisman pick. And it almost looks, it's only 3 weeks, but it almost looks more sure. And here's my point: it's not necessarily the numbers that he's putting up, but it's the Pac 12 as a whole is doing incredible right now. So if he continues to put those numbers up against these Pac 12 teams that are also doing good, it's going to, I feel like, propel him even more. Because going into the year, it was, well, Caleb Williams may be back to back. But it's like, wait a minute. Did you not see the season that Michael Penix Jr. had last year as well? And now they have a great team and they're facing great teams, hopefully, here soon. Granted, they played a Michigan State team that is going through a lot of personal issues right
They're
now.
about to fire their coach. They might not win another game. Like that program is in the dumps right now.
Yeah, so I'll still give him credit because not just anyone can put up those numbers, but he hasn't faced the highest quality of opponents yet. But my dark horse pick also was in the Pac-12, and a lot of people may or may not know the name, but I'm sure if you're a college football fan, you will. That is Damian Martinez, the running back for Oregon State. Uh, Behind that offensive
Not the
line,
quarterback. That's interesting.
yes, because he's putting up such consistent numbers, and he was last year too. But that offensive line is, I'll say, putting Oregon State on the map. Of course, the people will say, "Well, DJU is," but I won't. That his name may be, but I don't think his playing is. But it's Damian Martinez who consistently is putting up great numbers. He's just a dark horse pick. He's someone that I really like. I think he's a phenomenal running back, and yes, he has a great offensive line to help benefit that. But I think at the end of the day, he's also has the skills there that I think could transpire to the NFL.
Yeah, and also one really cool fact that I want to mention about Michael Penix. So a lot of people might not know, but Michael Penix is from Tampa, and his mom and my dad were actually coworkers at one point.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to
Not
me.
making it up. And I've met his mom. She's a very sweet lady. I've never met Michael, but I have met his mom, and she's a really, really sweet lady.
Yeah, sometimes you never know who you're gonna have friends in common with, family in common with. It's crazy. I remember once I worked at this baseball place, this baseball store, and this gentleman walked in. He was decked out in LSU gear, and I was like, "Oh, big LSU fan." And this was when I lived in California. I said, "You're a little far from home," and he said, "Just a little bit." And I said, "Are you a big fan?" And he said, "Absolutely, I am." And he said, I actually have a nephew who plays for the team." And I said, "Well, I'm a big college football fan, so if you feel comfortable enough telling me who your nephew is, maybe I'll know him." And he said, "Yeah, his name's Leonard Fournette." Uh, If you didn't know who he was, I mean, wow. But I thought it was the coolest thing that here I am running into someone, and I'm in California, and his nephew's Leonard Fournette, who is a very popular player for the LSU Tigers.
That is crazy, bro, because a good friend of mine here in Tampa actually went to the same high school as Leonard Fournette. I don't think they went at the same time, but they did. They did go to the same high school. It's just crazy how small this world is.
Yes, I've had countless stories where it's this world truly is smaller than it appears. But that about wraps it up for our second episode. I really do appreciate all of you that are watching us, supporting us. Once again, please like and subscribe, share this. It would mean a lot to both me and David. You could follow us, me individual, on Twitter. It'll still be Twitter to me as always as well, not just X, at Booster Matty Ice. And David here, you could follow him as he will share his socials.
Yes, you can follow me at David underscore Street 17. Again, that's at David underscore Street 17.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you, David. I appreciate the audience, and we will see you here on our next show. Until then, have a great day. Continue to watch sports.
As always, go Gators.
Go Ducks.